All right, let's unpack a pretty wild idea today. It connects a declassified U.S. Army report from 1983 with psychic powers, and believe it or not, the phone that's probably in your pocket right now. This is a story that kicks off with some seriously weird science, and, well, it ends up in a place you might find disturbingly familiar.
Yeah, you heard that right. This whole thing, this secret government project that started it all, it wasn't about tanks, it wasn't about bombs, no. It was about headphones. And trust me, understanding why is what's going to take us down a very interesting rabbit hole. Okay, first up, a gateway to the absolute. So let's start with the document itself. The Army actually called this thing the gateway process, and the whole point was to find a gateway to something they called the absolute. So, back in 1983, the U.S. Army was exploring this thing called the gateway process. And the goal? Well, it was to use sound to literally alter consciousness. The core idea was, surprisingly simple. They figured if they fed specific audio frequencies into each ear, basically bleeps and bloops, they could get the left and right sides of the brain to sync up, to get on the same wavelength, literally. They called it hemisync, and the big hope that this could unlock latent psychic abilities. And what was the ultimate goal of all this audio wizardry? To reach a state of consciousness the report calls the absolute. They described it as, get this, stepping out the back door of space and time. I mean, as our source material perfectly puts it, it sounds kind of like a vodka brand for monks, right? But for the Army, this wasn't just some spiritual quest. The goal was way more practical. They wanted to explore consciousness as a brand new frontier, maybe even use it to spy on the Soviets without ever leaving an armchair. But, this whole bizarre experiment, it actually points to a fundamental rule about any powerful technology, which brings us right to our next section, the key and the lock.
Okay, so just imagine for a second. Imagine you invent a key, a tool that has the power to unlock human consciousness to offer genuine liberation. Well, it's pretty much a guarantee that someone else is going to use that exact same knowledge to do the complete opposite, to invent a lock to slam that door right shut. It's really just two sides of the same coin, isn't it? Invention and control. And this really lays out the stakes perfectly, doesn't it? On one side, you have the key, the promise of opening the mind, expanding consciousness, real liberation. But on the other side, you've got the lock, using that same understanding to slam the door shut, to control consciousness, to turn a tool of freedom into one of propaganda. And this isn't just some abstract philosophical debate. I mean, we have real-world examples. We know about the CIA's MKULTRA project. We know DARPA is pouring tons of money into brain-machine interfaces. And let's be honest, we all live every single day with predictive algorithms that seem to know what we want even before we do.
All right, so how do we get from this weird old experiment with headphones all the way to the grid we live in today? So the original gateway process was super small scale, right? It was a one-to-one thing. One pair of headphones, one skull. A very controlled experiment designed to tweak just one mind.
But what if you don't need the headphones anymore? The principle behind Gateway was always about influencing the brain's frequency. And today? Well, today we are bathed in frequencies from a massive global grid of cell towers, satellites, and Wi-Fi. The argument from the source is that this grid has the potential to apply that very same principle of influence, not just to one person in a lab, but to millions, even billions.
And, as the source so perfectly puts it, cheers Silicon Valley, right? Because the algorithms that curate our feeds, that predict what we want to buy, watch, and believe, they're basically the modern-day version of this process. They're not using literal bleeps and bloops, sure, but they are absolutely designed to do the same fundamental thing: shape our thoughts and our behaviors on a massive, massive scale. And that is the crucial point here. We tend to think of mind control as something out of a sci-fi movie, But the argument here is that it's not science fiction. It's already here. It's just subtle. It's woven into our daily lives so seamlessly that we just call it Tuesday. So if we accept that this is happening, the next logical question is, where is it all going? Well, the source material lays out a speculative but kind of chilling timeline, a timeline to what it calls the cage. So let's walk through this timeline step by step. Back in 2015, it all starts innocently enough, in the lab, right? Don't worry, it's just research. Then, by 2020, we see algorithms being used to nudge mass behavior.
Fast forward to today, around 2025, and we're living in an era of subtle mind shaping through our social media feeds and the grid. But look where it's headed. Between 2030 and 2040, the prediction is direct emotional tuning. Alexa, make me patriotic. And the end game? By 2050, we're in what the source calls the cage with good Wi-Fi. The game is over, and we might not even notice because we're too busy being entertained. And this all brings us to the final, really powerful metaphor that ties this whole crazy story together. It's called the painted door. Okay, so remember the whole point of that original gateway process? It was about liberation, right? It was about finding a doorway out, a way to escape the everyday and get to the absolute. That was the promise.
But the reality, the big punchline of this whole analysis, is that the system we're all a part of isn't a real door to anywhere. It's a painted door on a solid brick wall. And we're all just queuing up, ready to walk straight into it because it gives us the illusion of escape and connection, all while being designed to keep us exactly where we are.
So maybe the real takeaway here is that we have to update our whole idea of what mind control even is. It's not the old sci-fi stuff, jackboots and electrodes. It's much quieter. It's the nudges, it's the grids, and it's the algorithms that shape our world every single day.
And all of this really leaves us with one central, pretty uncomfortable question. Can you, right now, spot the difference between the genuine absolute, a moment of real insight or connection, and the demo version that just happens to come with ads? The answer, at least according to this analysis, is unsettlingly simple. You can, for now.